Welcome to Sports Geek Q&A. Here's your host, Sean Callanan.
Yes, I'm Sean Callanan from Sports Geek. Remember, you can send in your question these ways, sportsgeekhq.com/questions, or you can send me a tweet at Sean Callanan or at SportsGeek. Or you can even send it to me on Instagram at Sean Callanan. I'm sharing a photo from live sport every day until sports returns. Or you can do the old-fashioned way via email, Sean at sportsgeekhq.com. Don't forget, you can support our sports business content efforts in podcasting, newsletter, and now Zoom at Patreon. Simply go to sportsgeekhq.com/Patreon. And the first question actually comes from one of our Zoom calls. You can join the Sports Biz Zoom calls. This one came from Steve Pastorino, former podcast guest. It was one of the early Zoom calls we had. It was what are my thoughts on sports leaping into gaming and esports with the current situation we are currently in. I think I did hear it on another podcast. I guess this current crisis is accelerating what potentially was going to happen anyway. So I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing sports that had already made inroads into the esports gaming space that have simulation sports already. So motorsport with iRacing, we're seeing NASCAR, Formula One doing a lot of things in the esports space, supercars here in Australia. I think they're making some really big inroads in the gaming and esports space. In that they've got an esport that looks exactly like their normal product. So I think it's an easy transition. Then you've got the other sports that have a sports simulator, so the NBA 2K, FIFA, and the like. They've already been setting up leagues, discussed it with Brendan Donohue at NBA 2K and discussed it with a couple of the teams in the NBA 2K, and we've seen FIFA do the same. So I think it's just accelerated that. And then I think what we've also seen is the acceleration of just entering the gaming market. So more athletes that are playing games that aren't related to their sport, and sports starting to do things that they probably wouldn't have done 3 months ago, which would have been, having a player Call of Duty or a Fortnite on a club channel. So I think there's some real good lessons to be learned. There'll be some mistakes, but I think we're in a period where we're allowing them, and we're allowing of mistakes, and they're allowed to be had because we're in this strange time. So I think it is good. I think the interesting thing is it's not going to completely convert every single fan. It's not going to match the numbers of the real thing, but it is a way. It is another content piece, another way to engage fans. So I think that's the main thing. And I think the other thing is esports going into traditional broadcast was the other side of the equation we looked at, with things like Riot Games, League of Legends being shown on ESPN, and some of the missteps that were made there, where there was not ad blocks put in for the ESPN broadcasts, and then the other thing of how do you talk to a different audience and sort of raise the position of, if you're going to talk to a new audience, in this case it's a pro sport audience talking to gaming, or even just new fans to the game, is there opportunity for alternate broadcasts, which is what I was tackling and plan to keep tackling with Gravitas, sort of doing the Gravitas cast and doing an alternate cast to try to explain to people what this esport is. So I think there's going to be a lot of lessons and learnings out of this period as sports sort of dive into the world of gaming, but also understand that esports, which is the competitive nature and the competitive outcome, and gaming are different. So if you're just watching someone play a game, that would be gaming. And that is a very big market because there's a lot of people who are game. And then esports is the very, very top. So making something watchable and competitive is what is really the key parts of success for esports. So thanks for that question, Stephen, and thank you very much for attending multiple Sports Biz Zooms. Question 2 came from a mate of mine, Dennis, who was checking in on me, and thank you very much, Dennis. And he's asking me what tool I've been playing with. This is a time for experimentation and try new things. One that I've been playing around with has been Lucky Orange. It's a tool, a sort of an advanced analytics and funnel analysis tool that really gives you some good insight on how people are using the website. And so it can give you things like heat maps, to show where people are hovering and clicking, where they're going particularly. So again, understanding how hard it is to get into the digital plumbing of potentially a website, but if you can, it's very easy to install. And it's very interesting then to see when people hit your front page, if they are going to your front page, where do they go from there? Where do they hover? What are they looking at on the side? And you can set up a whole bunch of tags, and you can really go deep on it, on where people go. So at the moment, we'll go, what's people doing on sportsgeekhq.com? Are they going to the Zoom calls page? From the Zoom calls page, are they going to sign up for the newsletter? Are they listening to a podcast? Is someone going from the podcast to signing up for the newsletter? Those kind of things have given me some insights to sort of change some headings, change the size of a button, those kind of things. So if you are looking at that, it's worth looking at. It's probably worth putting on things like your shops, merchandise, membership shops, that kind of thing, to sort of see what people are doing. There's a 7-day trial that you can give it a go, and it's relatively inexpensive for what it does. But it's definitely worth, analysing what you're doing. If you haven't changed your website for a while, it can give you some really good data on that. Question 3 came from a mate of mine, Luke, because everyone now is looking for content and what TV show are you watching? So answering this, I watch TV, obviously everyone does, but I'm not a social media TV fan. I don't tweet often or live tweet when I'm watching a TV show. A bit like my live sport, I just watch it. I might tune in. I might look at the stuff during the ads if I'm watching it on a linear TV that has advertising. But one of the things I have been watching, and I've been a long time fan for many years, is Survivor. Winners at War is very good. And as I'm, recording this, The Last Dance, obviously, like everybody else, craving some sports content and being a fan of that era of NBA basketball and all things Michael Jordan, as someone who ran a trading card store in the 90s and was very much caught up in the whole growth of the NBA through that period. I really enjoyed the first 2 episodes of The Last Dance. And a shout out to a mate of mine, Adam Ryan, a guy here in Australia, who has his own podcast, NBA History Podcast, in all airness. He's been doing a podcast on the 90s Bulls for about, nearly 10 years, I think, or close enough to. It feels like it. He got some credit. He got a credit in the Last Dance documentary, helping them source some material and put some of the pieces together. So, love your feedback. What are you watching? What's binge worthy? Thanks again for your questions. Remember, you can send them in at any time, any of my social channels, or you can send me an email, sean@sportsgeekhq.com. I'd love your support on Patreon. You can go to sportsgeekhq.com/Patreon to pledge your monthly support for everything that we do, being these podcasts, the podcasts that come out on a Tuesday with interviews, our Sports Geek newsletter, and now we've got our Sports Biz Zoom calls. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/Zoom calls to join. Until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
You can reach Sean Callanan via email at sean@sportsgeekhq.com. Find out more about Sports Geek's Digital to Dollars process at digitaltodollars.com. Go to sportsgeekhq.com for more sports digital marketing resources.